Meeting to order for Tuesday, May 20th. With that, I ask for roll call.
Councilmember Svenby.
Here.
Trilson. Dotson.
Here.
Schultz. Burbank.
Here.
Rainey.
Here.
Abraham.
Here.
Mayor Kuntz.
Here.
We have 5 at the council and the mayor present.
Thank you. I've asked Councilmember Dave Burbank to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We did. Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome to the City Council meeting for May 20th. And with that, we do have, we are going to change 3.22 and move it down to between 3.51 and address that at that point. So with that, Chair will entertain a motion for change.
That would be 3.21.
3.21. Okay, sorry about that.
We're moving it down to where?
Between 3.51 and 3.52.
Okay. We also wanted to clarify those two issues that we had, just that is Atlanta Swimming Club on the consent agenda.
Yes, that's a new name of the organization.
The Owatonna Swimming Club.
Yes.
And also the support for the Northgate Apartments on Resolution 2814 on 3.5.2.
Right, okay.
It's the same documents, but it's just a clarification of name.
Just a clarification of name, okay.
Yep.
Chair will look for a motion to
approve the agenda as noted.
Okay, we have a motion by Brent Svenby to approve as noted. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Now we will move on to the mayor, and I understand we have a proclamation.
I do have a proclamation, and it is National Senior Health and Fitness, and that starts on May 28th, and the proclamation reads, whereas Owatonna Senior Place is participating in the 21st Annual National Senior Health and Fitness Day on May 28, 2014. And whereas on this day, an estimated 100,000 seniors across the country are expected to help promote activity, healthy lifestyles through physical fitness, good nutrition, and preventive care. And whereas Owatonna Senior Place has various activities planned, and whereas the City of Owatonna promotes physical well-being for staff and residents. Now, therefore, I, Thomas A. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Owatonna, hereby proclaim this day, May 28, 2014, as Senior Health and Fitness Day in the City of Owatonna, and ask the citizens of Owatonna to help support Owatonna Senior Place in promotion of this event and participate in the activities planned. And some of the activities planned are Tai Chi, free fitness pass, water aerobics, bike demo, trail walking, pickleball, backyard games, darts and billiards, cards, Mexican train, pinochle, bridge, and from 4:30 to 6, they're having a picnic dinner at Morehouse Park.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the financial, and I will recap the financial, which is $184,338 for MTI Distributing Incorporated for golf course equipment, $36,932 for South Central Drug Investigation Unit, $25,502 for Yoakum Oil as fuel purchased, $121,197 for Southeast Service Cooperative monthly health insurance premiums for a total of $241,989. With addition, for a total expenditure, we have other expenditures for that amount for a total of $609,960. What is the council's wishes?
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Kevin to approve the bills. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next items on the agenda are consent agenda items, which are exempt permits, retail permits, requests, minutes of meetings, department reports, event permits, contract agreements, etc., all grouped into one motion. And what is the council's wishes there?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Brent Svenby to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion there on any of the items? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Now we move on to license permit. We have retail sales of cigarette and other tobacco products for 1407 South Oak Avenue, and for that we'll go to Chris.
Thank you, Les. We've received an application from Mr. Petroka. He plans to open a new smoke shop called Star Tobacco. The background investigation has been completed, and Chief Hiller has no objections. They have paid their prorated amount for the fee. The license will expire on December 31, 2014, and staff would recommend approval.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Next item is 3.1.2, new tree trimmer permit for Houston Tree Service LLC, and that will go to Chris also.
Thank you. We have received all of the license fee and certificate of liability insurance with this application. This will be effective immediately upon approval and expire March 31st, 2015. City staff would recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Dave Burbank to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Now we will move over to contract agreements, and we will start, we have moved the demolition down, so we'll go to 3.2.2, work order number 4 to professional services, contract with Bolton Minnick. At that, we go to Troy.
Good evening. Bolton & Mink is our consultant on airport design, and we had budgeted in our CIP budget $10,000 for design of pavement maintenance throughout the airport. So evaluation was done on all the pavement. Estimates of all that work came out much higher than we had estimated early on. And so with that information, also with the governor's supplemental budget, Minnesota Department of Aeronautics is likely to fund more of the city's portion of FAA projects, which provides us an opportunity to leverage more for the dollars that we would put into a project. So in discussing this with Bolton & Mink, we thought a better plan would be to design and try to complete smaller projects rather than do the design for all the maintenance projects at the airport. And so with this request, the scope of services provided in this work order would include the design, preparation of plans and specifications, preparation of bid documents, bid administration, grant administration, construction engineering, FAA coordination and documentation, and project closeout services for the East Apron area, which is identified as in the poorest condition out at the airport. The engineer would also prepare alternate design and bid schedules for additional pavement expansion and repair work for areas on the East aircraft parking ramp. And so what that means is our local share for the engineering services would be $2,865, and then we have $10,000 budgeted. We would choose to use those funds as a local share to do an actual construction project for this year if this funding goes through. At this point, we're just doing the design work and getting bid packages ready. We would wait until after the supplemental budget is signed by the governor and that 5% local share is in fact approved before we would move on any further, and that would come before the council at that point in time. So staff would recommend approval of the work order number 4 with Bolton & Mink for engineering services for the East Apron pavement reconstruction project.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council?
Motion Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do you have a second of that?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. We'll move on to board and commission recommendations. 3.3.1, conditional use permit C1361 for Sacred Heart. And there we go back to Troy.
We have a request by Sacred Heart Church, located at 810 South Cedar Avenue, to construct a 35 by 60 foot office building. This is a second principal structure on the site because it will be separate from the church. Therefore, it throws it into a planning and development category within our zoning ordinance. So they're requesting construction of the office building. The plans would be to eliminate the parking and drive-up area between the church and the office building. They would be still under the parking easement arrangement with Fairway Foods. They're required to have 162 parking spaces. They would have 217 available to them through that easement agreement. On the site plan, there were some discussions of having a garage constructed on the rectory with the driveway coming out onto the driveway with Fairway Foods, and that is likely to be modified. That wasn't specific to this request, but I wanted to note that because there was a condition placed on that approval with that stipulation on there. This did go to public hearing at Planning Commission. There were no comments or objections, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval, provided the applicant shall have the lots formally combined prior to the issuance of a building permit. And then there was a stipulation on that driveway, and we would recommend that that be dropped as a recommendation. So staff would recommend approval of the conditional use request as recommended by the Planning Commission, with the elimination of the condition that the driveway to the garage shall be installed without first obtaining a private access easement with Fairway Foods.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Kevin?
Troy, just how many parking spots does that leave Sacred Heart on their property? Not counting the Fairway property.
I don't know exactly. I think they were pretty close to that 162. And then the easement area. See, the easement area is partially owned by Sacred Heart and partially owned by Fairway Foods. So the easement goes both ways. Fairway Foods has the ability to park on the church's property as well. So the bulk of that is owned by the church, and part of it that they have access to park on through that easement would bring it up to that 217.
Okay.
So there is adequate parking there?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Good luck with it. The next one is 3.3.2, variance number 1362, Stephen and Sarah Gannert, home addition on Northridge, and we'll go back to Troy.
Okay, this is a request by Stephen and Sarah Gannert at 3055 Northridge Lane. They are requesting a variance for a three-season porch. The original request was for 16 feet by 15 feet 6 inches with a rear yard setback of 18 feet 3 inches. Off the rear property line, the ordinance requires a 30-foot rear yard setback. Within the development, there are covenants on the property that require the front yard setback to be at 40 feet, where the city ordinance requires a 30-foot front yard setback, which does push the houses back. The Planning Commission did have quite a bit of discussion on this. This is a request. It's for a three-season porch, and we have had these requests in the past. We've had, none of them have gone to the point where the applicant has requested for a variance, but we've had a number of people interested in it. The Planning Commission did talk about this for a lengthy part of time, and they did recommend approval, but they did move the rear yard setback to 20 feet, so the variance would just be a 10-foot variance. They also predicated that on the fact that they would be taking a look at the ordinance to review these 3 and 4 season porches. And it is something that we have talked about in the past on these 3 and 4 season porches encroaching into that rear yard setback, much like a deck is now. A deck is allowed to encroach into that rear yard setback with a 20-foot setback. So with all that discussion, the Planning Commission will be looking at the ordinances and amending those. And to keep the applicants moving along on their projects, they did recommend approval with that 20-foot rear yard setback. So staff would recommend approval of the variance request as recommended by Planning Commission with that 20-foot rear yard setback.
Thank you. I guess the question I've got is that with a number of them coming to us now, this one in particular, where the 30-foot setback, they're not violating it by 1 or 2 feet, but 12 feet. I have a little bit of a problem with that. And I guess from my standpoint, I would like to see us put this on hold or until we have the Planning and Zoning Commission really look at what they want to change in the ordinance and how they want to identify what the structure would be. If it's a 3-season or 4-season porch, is that part of the building or is that classified as a deck yet? So, to me, that's where I'm coming from. Again, like I said, I don't mind a 1 or 2 foot encroachment, but when it goes to 12 foot, that's, to me, excessive. So that's my input right now. So I guess, Council, have any other questions?
I guess to me, the variance process is there for property owners to request to vary the ordinance based on practical difficulties according to the state statute. So we need to look at the state statute and the city ordinance, and I think we need to act on the request since our ordinance allows for variances. And actually, I don't have a problem with the original request made by the Ganterts to have that setback of 18 feet 3 inches from the property line because they do have a unique shaped lot. With having those covenants on the property, that pushes their house back 40 feet from the front property line.
Right.
Without that covenants, the house could have been pushed forward closer to the roadway and be further from the rear property line. So I guess I don't have a problem with us going through that variance process for situations like this, and I don't have a problem with the 18 feet 3 inches from the rear property line based on the practical difficulties on that.
Well, my recommendation would be is that we look at getting the ordinance changed before we start giving things that may not or may violate the ordinance.
Yeah, but we do have that process in the ordinance out for variance. I don't think we need to hold someone's construction plans up since we do have a process in the ordinance to allow for variances.
Yeah, and I understand that.
So.
I guess my concern going forward is if we change that variance to 20 feet, we're going to get people coming in, well, I want to bring that down to 17. It's only 3 feet. When in fact it's going to be 13 feet from our old variance. So if it does get pushed down to 20 feet for the backyard, we're going to get those issues.
Well, and just to be clear, the ordinance that would probably be looked at would be addressing those 3 and 4 season porches, and it would be, right now there are certain uses that are permitted to encroach into that 30-foot rear yard setback. Patios, decks, it would be a classification of 3 and 4 season porches into that rear yard setback. Treat them much like a deck, and there'd probably be some stipulations on, having open airspace underneath, so you're not actually adding on, a basement level to that extent as well. The point is for people to be able to enjoy their backyards. Decks are allowed to encroach that far, and as you know, we only have a limited amount of time to use our decks, and so our ordinance will change over time as people's preference for things change, much like garages. Everyone, wants to have a 2- and 3-stall garage. We did modify our ordinance to reflect those trends, and so you will see in our ordinance we're quite lenient on those attached garages. And so this has been something that has been coming up numerous times in the past. This is probably the first time it's actually come as a formal request for a variance. But it's to the point where we've had, and you'll see after this request is another request for the same sort of scenario. And so we've probably gotten to a point where we do need to look at that, and a classification change might be in order. That's something the Planning Commission would take a look at for that.
And again, going back to the classification, if we decide that a 3-season porch is part of the building structure, then we violate it because we do not allow that to happen with a building structure, a garage or a house structure. So it's going to be determined what we call that, if it's going to be a deck or if it's going to be part of the structure.
Well, you in fact could have a 3- or 4-season porch that's attached to the house, be it a permitted encroachment. So it would be looking at the definitions of what we have now.
Right.
It comes down to the opinion of the council and the city is that something, with the number of requests that we've had and the number of requests we're going to have, do you want to handle each of these with the variance, or do you want to take a look at the ordinance and classify them differently? I wouldn't necessarily look at the extent of the variance request and say if it's a couple feet it's okay and if it's more it's not. It's really, you kind of have to treat everybody fairly, and if you're going to allow 1 or 2, even if there's slight variances, you have to treat them all the same, and so we would have to look at those larger variances as well. So that's why they chose to take a look at the ordinance and see if there's a way to classify this to make this more convenient for people.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Nate?
Well, I tend to agree with Brent. I'm generally going to defer to property owners. Every property is going to be unique. There's going to be challenges in ways that homeowners want to utilize their property. If it's a reasonable request, I see no reason to delay it.
Okay.
And I think both of the requests we have are reasonable. That being the case, I'll make the motion that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby.
Based on findings, we have those 3 findings we have to make. So I guess based on those three findings in the staff report, the 3 findings of fact. Can we read those or not?
What's that?
Can we read those 3 findings of fact that we have to make for the variance?
I think it's stated in here. It qualifies. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I do oppose that at this point. I would like to see us go back and look at the ordinance or make a change before we start giving approvals to these. So with that, we'll move on to the next one, which is variance number V1363, Mo's Construction for Joshua and Devin Willar Home Edition. And there we go back to Troy.
Well, this is a very similar request. Applicant is Scott Moses, Mo's Construction for Joshua and Devin Willer. This would be a 14 by 14 and a half 4-season porch off the rear of the house. It would be result in a 26-foot 6-inch rear yard setback, where the ordinance requires 30 feet. Again, it's in the same subdivision that has the covenants for the 40-foot front yard setback. Again, part of the public hearing, much of this discussion happened on the previous request at the Planning Commission. Once it was decided the Planning Commission was going to take a look at the ordinance, there was much less discussion on this one. It follows the same criteria that for approval on the last one. And so the Planning Commission did recommend approval based on the same findings of facts as the previous request. And so staff would recommend approval of this variance request as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. And any questions from the council?
Motion we approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I again will oppose it for the same reason. Thank you. Moving on to 3.4.1, second reading of proposed ordinance 3-14, elected official salary amounts, and that will go to Chris.
Thank you, Les. As you know, salaries for elected officials were last changed January 1997. We had reviewed this item in a work session and discussed at length. Council had indicated an increase in the salary would be beneficial for a number of reasons. One, to kind of offset some of the costs associated with running for office. There's a number of meetings, time away from work, that sort of thing. So council also expressed an interest in developing a job description and having some expectations of elected officials, which staff is working on. And so what we have before you now is the proposed salary increases as outlined. The budget, the increases would be the president of the council shall go from $750 to $800 per month. Vice president of the council will go from will increase to $750 per month, and the mayor will increase from $750 to $850 per month. And then the council members will increase from $600 to $650 per month. This would take effect fiscal year 2015. Budget impact is $6,600 per year. Staff would recommend approval.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the council? What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave Burbank to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. I'll go with Brent. Kevin, okay.
I didn't say it.
It was unison over there. Okay. Kevin, a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I had some reservations about this that I previously stated. I would maybe like to suggest that this be, and given historically it's not going to be for many years to come, but with council increases, we come up with maybe an informal process, be that through a charter commission, recommendations by the charter commission possibly, as it is an odd situation to have to vote to give yourself a raise. So if we could act on a recommendation from a commission in the future.
Thank you. I agree with you there. Okay.
Yeah,
Kevin.
I agree with Nate. That would be a much simpler, easier way of doing it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? This being an ordinance, ask for roll call.
Councilmember Svenby.
Aye.
Dodson.
Aye.
Burbank.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Abraham.
Aye.
All 5 ayes.
Thank you.
2 absent.
Next item is 3.4.2, first reading of proposed ordinance 414, update fire code, and we'll go to Chris with that.
Yes, thank you, Les. What you have here is just a housekeeping item. Our current language does not reflect it reflects the 2003 state fire code, and we just need to update that to the current fire code. So staff would recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent. Any further discussion on this? Again, this being an ordinance, ask for roll call.
Councilmember Svenby.
Aye.
Dodson.
Aye.
Burbank.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Abraham.
Aye.
All 5 present are aye.
This has been approved also. Now we move on to 3.51, resolution number 2514, receive bids and award contract for 2014 Mineral Springs Parkway project. And that we would go to Kyle.
Good evening. This project was discussed earlier in the council work session. A couple things I'd like to add that have come across recently. I have met with a number of the property owners out there. I know there's a few in attendance here this evening. We received communication from the Dahlin, the property owner on the east side, objecting to the trail being located on the east side of the roadway. As far as we can tell, the sidewalk and trail plan has been in place with that trail for over 10 years being located on the east side. We've heard concerns from the large property owners. There's several developers with property owners. It's a longer project with very few property owners, so the individual assessments are rather high. And then the concerns that were addressed earlier for you to consider from the work session. The apparent low bidder was about 20% under the engineer's estimate.
Thank you. And this has been something that do we really have all the working agreements with the residents along that road yet?
We have the right of way. We've met with Dollins. I don't know that we've resolved the trail issue to their satisfaction, and we've had concerns over the geometrics at the entrance to Mineral Springs Park. That property owner there is a little more difficult to contact, so we haven't had a conversation with them. It hasn't been a smooth project.
I guess from my standpoint, I don't think that we're really ready for this, and I would recommend that we postpone this until next year and get everything in order. So, from my standpoint, I would like to postpone that until next year.
My question would be, realistically, if we wait on this project, will there be substantive change to the trail plan? I mean, do we expect that something would change to the satisfaction of the property owners? I mean, realistically, what will we gain by delaying?
Well, I think it would offer the opportunity to talk with each of the property owners and maybe try to work with them on the design. Or, in some cases, it might be screening, it might be some design of the roadway, positioning of the trail. There's a number of things that could be looked at in discussing with the adjacent property owners to a point where we might have a resolution on the overall design.
Do we have any property owners that are anxious to get the project done? I mean, they've expressed concerns that this project needs to get done.
I've heard more property owners speak against the project than for it. I have not had one come out in favor.
So, I guess from my standpoint, I would recommend, but I can't make the motion, I'd recommend that we delay this until next year.
Kyle, all the work that's proposed will be within the existing right-of-way for that roadway, right?
Correct.
So we're not acquiring any more right-of-way?
Correct.
The issue I have, if we put this off another year, is the cost will go up for sure. And then, like I mentioned previously, when I got on the council 9 years ago, that Mineral Springs Road has been in the CIP budget since that time. And every year it kept on getting pushed back and back and back. So I would be a little leery as far as tabling this for another year, and what happens next year. We have the same issues, nothing's been resolved, it gets pushed back again, and it keeps on getting pushed back again. I mean, if you just drive by that roadway and see the pedestrians that use that roadway to get down to that park, I think it's a safety issue that we need to resolve and get a safe means of passage for pedestrians and bicyclists down to Mineral Springs Park. Some of the issues that Troy maybe mentioned, some of the screening, I think some of those things could be worked out. As if it's just landscaping issues, those things can maybe be worked out during the construction process after the trail is built. So to me, I don't think we should push this back another year. I think we need to act on it this year and get that roadway improved for the citizens of Owatonna.
Thank you, Brent. Any other comments or questions? Dave?
I would agree with Brent on it being a safety issue. It's going to be dangerous down there with the blacktop breaking up and young mothers with their little ones in strollers on that busted up pavement with traffic. So I would support moving ahead with the project this year.
Okay. Well, it looks like Kevin.
I guess I look at this very similar to the Lamont Road issue, where we moved it back a year and listened to the property owners. But for the fact that 35 was under construction this year, I think we were ready to go with that project. I just think there's a lot of issues that need to be resolved with the property owners before we move this project forward. So I would be in support of moving it back until next year.
Okay. Well, I guess at this point, I said I would look for a motion to delay it until next year, or we move forward.
I will make the motion with the acknowledgement that, Kyle, we realistically expect this to get done next year, and we want to work with property owners and try and have a resolution that will be satisfactory. They're big lots. They're going to be big assessments no matter what happens. It's going to be expensive. But I definitely don't want this to just get pushed back and then keep getting shuffled around and not get done. So if we can put it off a year with the expectation that this project is getting done next year, so that we make sure we get in contact with all the property owners and make sure there's a good understanding of the project and
have everything in order to...
Yeah.
Okay, that's a motion? We have a motion.
Long-winded motion.
To delay until next year and make sure that it does get done next year. Looking for a second to that motion.
I'll second that.
Second by Kevin Rainey. Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, I'll just kind of what Nate said. My expectation is that this will be an ongoing process, so that when this comes before us next spring, the property owners are all, maybe not all in agreement with the project, but in understanding with the project, so that it can and will move forward next year.
Keep voting until we get it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 3 and 2, and we do need a 4 count. So this has failed.
Yeah, maybe we should have Mark review that for council.
Yes.
Right. Given that we have 2 members absent, you have a quorum, but you need 4 votes for anything to pass. There have to be 4 votes in favor of the proposition. That's, I think, 100:35 of the ordinance code. And so at 3-2, the matter doesn't pass.
Right, it does not pass. Tom?
I'd just recommend we table it till next council meeting.
That we can do also. It has not passed at this point. The next recommendation would be either we vote for the project to continue and award it, or we vote to table it until next meeting. So, what is the council's wishes?
Make a motion. We table to the next meeting.
We have a motion to table until next meeting. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second that.
I have a second by Brent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been tabled until our next meeting. Thank you. With that, we will move on to the next one on the agenda, which is the one we moved down there, which is 3.2.1. It's quote for demolition, flood grant demolition on Lamond Road. And with that, we'll go to Troy.
The city has purchased 3 houses in the floodplain along Lamond Road. They are 215, 305, and 317 Lamond Road with flood grant money. The purpose of the grant is to allow the demolition of the structures within the floodplain. The grant does cover 100% of the total demolition costs. The city sent out an invitation for quotations on April 7th. The invitation was sent out to 7 local contractors that have performed demolition work within the city or have expressed interest previously. The city received 3 quotations prior to the deadline of noon on April 29th. The 3 quotes received are included in the attached table. The low quotation for the demolition of the structures was received by JJD Companies, LLC, with a total fee of $26,750 for the demolition of all 3 properties. Budget impact, long-term, there would be no budget impact. The city would be reimbursed for 100% of the costs covered by the DNR. Short-term is the city would need to pay the contractor and be willing to wait for reimbursement from the DNR. And we did have a study session on that as far as awarding the bid, and I will turn it back over to you.
Thank
Les,
you. Yes.
maybe we should have Mark review kind of the lowest responsible bidder issues for council prior to a decision.
Thank you, Mark.
As we discussed during the study session, the definition of a lowest responsible bid is generally held to mean not merely the lowest bidder whose financial ability to perform the contract is deemed the best, but the bidder who most likely in regard to skill, ability, and integrity to do faithful, conscientious work and promptly fulfill the contract according to its letter and spirit. In determining who the lowest responsible bidder is, the City Council has reasonable discretion. Responsibility includes such things as the bidder's financial responsibility, integrity, ability, skill, and likelihood of providing faithful and satisfactory performance. The fact that a low bidder on a public contract has performed poorly on a previous contract or whose work has been subject to delays are matters the Council may consider. Facts showing that a low bidder has been associated with other firms which have done unsatisfactory work on public contracts in the past is also a factor that Council may take into account. That's a statement of the law.
Thank you, Mark. Nate.
Well, I would just like to thank Jolene for coming tonight and addressing some of the concerns we had with awarding the contract. I am satisfied that they should be given the opportunity to do this job, and with that, I will make the motion that we award the contract.
To JJD and Company.
JJD.
Thank you. We have a motion by Nate to approve this with JJD as the contractor. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Brent Fenby. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Congratulations and good luck with that. With that, we will now move on to, let's see, we are now at Resolution 28.14, Support Northgate Apartments. And there we go to Troy.
Okay, we have we had a study session at the last council meeting about Northgate Phase 2. This would be kind of the open space on Rose Street about a proposed project by Metro Plains. And I say Metro Plains in the staff report, but in fact it would be LWO Properties, which again is the same people, just a different name. So in the resolution you will have LWO Properties listed in that resolution. They are seeking funding through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. As part of that application, they do need a resolution of support from the City Council. And in addition to that, they would like to enter into a purchase agreement for the property. And the purchase agreement would indicate no cost for the property. The property is within a redevelopment TIF district, and our plan would be to utilize the increment generated from the project to pay the city back for the land as well as pay for some public improvements. And so staff would recommend approval of the resolution that you should have got handed out to you today, as well as moving forward with a purchase agreement with LWO Properties for the Gateway Phase 2 project.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving on to miscellaneous items, acknowledgement of delivery service for Cashwise. And this will go to Chris.
Thank you, Les. We've received a request from Cashwise Foods that they obtain a city acknowledgement of them adding liquor sales to their online shopping service. They are required under state statute to have the city acknowledge that they are offering liquor sales delivery. This is permitted under the state statutes, and they have delivery drivers have the same responsibility as bartenders, wait staff, to ensure that people are following the rules regarding legal sales. So there's no impact to the city budget. Staff recommends acknowledgement of this new service as permitted under state statute.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from the council?
So move we approve.
Motion to approve by Nate, and do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving on to declare excess equipment, and we'll go to Kyle with that.
Good evening. As promised in a previous work session, we have in front of you tonight a list of equipment that we would like to declare as excess. It's being declared as excess, being beyond repair, no longer necessary, obsolete, etc. One thing I'd like to point out there's a few items I'd like to point out. This will increase our budget for snow hauling. The first 3 units listed are currently used for snow hauling. They would be replaced with contract trucks. As you can see, the age on those trucks is relatively old, and they require a lot of repair. So we would recommend going with contract trucks. A couple of these snow plows we purchased a new one. There wasn't a trade-in value. The one item I'd also like to point out is the 2005 John Deere dozer. We're recommending taking that out of our equipment. It's not used, and for the amount of use that it is used, for the amount of use that we do use it, we feel that a rental would be a better option. And we would like to earmark the funds from the sale towards an additional 2-ton plow truck, which would replace the motor grader and one of the other plow trucks that's obsolete. And we'd recommend approval.
Thank you. Now, the repairs to those 3 trucks, does that almost equal what it may cost for a rental agreement?
Well, the biggest cost, of course, is labor, and the snow removal budget doesn't pay for that labor.
Yeah.
That labor comes from other departments that supplies those employees. So it won't be a wash, but for the city as a whole, it will be better.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Kyle, when you indicate contract trucks for the first 3, will that be Owatonna-owned businesses? Do we have enough contract trucks to move that much snow?
Every year we take quotations for snow removal, and then we start with the lowest cost per hour per cubic yard and then work our way through the list. So we don't have any concern. Last year we ran 2 blowers. As you recall from the last council meeting, we traded 2 blowers and we only have 1. We ran 11 trucks during one snowfall, and I believe there were 7 or 8 rental trucks in that haul, so there's plenty available.
Okay. Kevin.
So Kyle, with these 3 trucks that are being taken out and replaced with contract trucks, were these trucks used last year in snow removal?
Yes, they were.
And so one of the offsets with this then would be the people that were driving these weren't probably on overtime, so that would be eliminated?
Correct.
For those 3?
But often those were driven by someone from the park department or the government buildings or the golf course, and their wages didn't come from the snow removal budget, but they were paid overtime and by the city.
What is the council's wishes on this?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Kevin, right? Any further discussion on this?
Nice job.
Seeing none? Again, yes, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Thank you. Moving on to 3.63, special sign policy, deaf, blind, and autistic child. Kyle.
We had a request for a deaf child sign, and I looked for a policy, and we didn't have one. I wanted to be sensitive to the needs of those impaired situations, but also don't want to have signs everywhere that we lose track of. So what we've proposed is a simple application from the person desiring the sign, and then when they sign that application, they agree that if they move, they would notify us so that we can remove the sign. We don't want them there 20 years later or be replacing them. And then also it would be one signpost with two signs, one facing in each direction, in the property of the person that's requesting it, provided that it doesn't obstruct another sign. So it would be a revocable permit, and there would be no cost to the applicant. And we recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions from the council? What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
The motion by Brent to approve. Do you have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Now we will move on to public comment, and if anyone in the audience wishes to speak, please come to the podium, and anything not on the agenda for this evening, please sign in and tell us what you would like to tell us.
My name is Peggy Dolland. My husband Don and I are property owners at 1415 Mineral Springs Parkway. I grew up on that residence. I have watched that area develop for 54 years. I inherited the property when my parents passed away in 2012. While my husband Don and I support the project for Mineral Springs Parkway, even though it's going to be very costly for us, I would ask the council to reconsider the bike walking path and move it to the west side of the road, not the east side of the road. There are 5 properties on our side of the road. We have no way of moving our properties. The property on the opposite side of the road is undeveloped. There is only, I believe, one house that's on the corner of Mineral Springs Parkway and Mineral Springs Road, so that would be the only property that would be actually affected by this bike walking path. I do agree that we have to have one there. There's a lot of traffic that goes through there. We have a lot of bikes, a lot of kids with dogs, baby strollers, a ton of traffic. But having that going through your front yard every day, particularly on a weekend, does affect the quality of life. It's really kind of a nuisance. And if we could get that moved to the other side of the road, I think that would mitigate a lot of that. I know there's been discussions about putting up some kind of screening, that sort of thing, but that would actually encroach more onto our property. In light of this evening's discussion, my husband and I would support delaying the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to council comment, and we will start with Brent.
Just well wishes to Raymond, and hope to get him back here quickly.
Yes, very much so. Thank you. And we'll move on to Nate.
That's all I have to say.
Dave.
Have a safe Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Kevin.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, just reemphasize, keep Raymond in your prayers. He's got his health challenges, so just continue to keep him in your prayers. We look forward to him coming back and sitting on the city council. The other thing I wanted to mention is sometimes it's always interesting to look at the building inspection report, April 30th. Permits for 2013 were 399, value of $6 million plus dollars. Permits for 2014 were 406 with a value of $15 million. So what really has boosted that up is commercial projects. So Owatonna is alive and well, and commercial development is going very strong.
Thank you, Tom. Chris?
Just one thing. With the warmer weather, we are finding there are more people out and about, and more people are being transient merchants. So if you have someone coming to your door, they should all have a city permit. It's a white card, and that assures you that they've checked in with us and they've done all the proper paperwork. So just a reminder to the public that with the door-to-door folks, they should all have a permit, and if they don't, you can call City Hall, and we'll make sure that they are aware of the code and make sure that they get the proper paperwork.
Thank you. I did that today. I had somebody at my door, and I asked for their card, and they didn't have it.
Yeah.
Very simple. Thank you. And again, I would like to wish Raymond Godspeed. He's been a faithful council member for many years, and we wish him to come back and return with us. So with that, and everyone, please have a very, very safe Memorial Day. And with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Kevin to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dodson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.